Greetings, welcome everyone to Dorsey's Resource. The topic of this video is going to be 1099A OID redemption method, how I plan on discussing how it involves different procedures. And I give my way in. I gave a little bit of information in the description box. I want to thank all my loyal subscribers, those who continue to follow my work. I do greatly appreciate you. As usual, first, before we get started, I'd like to give a disclaimer. This video is going to be for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes only. This information is not intended to be tax or legal or financial advice. Any event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, please consider doing so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource channel is not liable or responsible for anyone's misuse of the information being discussed. Please keep in mind, I encourage everyone to please do his or her own homework and research regarding the matter being discussed if they disagree otherwise. Also, everyone is responsible for their own commercial affairs. All rights are reserved. Now, let's get into this. I wanted to discuss my way in with the recent controversy regarding those who are aware. This is going to be related to redemption education, sovereignty, as I talk about different genres. I plan on discussing my way in on the 1099A. Now, you guys know on this channel, those who follow me know I don't really go over that information, but since it was recently brought up amongst people who follow that type of information in the space that deals with I refer to call it redemption education, some call it sovereignty. By the way, I don't profess to be a sovereign citizen or any of that. Those derogatory terms or titles or labels that are umbrella terms used to discredit people. I discuss the legitimate information, understand that I'm very well studied, I'm very well researched, and I am college educated. I have credentials, and I've proven in the past, and there's more things, and I have supporting documentation, by the way, for those who question my authenticity, the credibility that I have. But with that being said, there's different processes involved when it comes to the 1099A procedure, the 1099A, the OIDs. There's also 1099Cs. I wanted to give my way in. Those who follow, there's a new guru on the scene. I think his last name is Mr. Hauser. I'm not sure what his first name is, and he recently got into a beef with another content creator influencer named King Stevian that says he has the right way. I want to let you guys know, whoever are newbies are out there studying this information for the first time. Some looked at it as another way to access your TDAs. Some of you all already know I've actually shared this information with privately many years ago, by the way. Just FYI, keep that in mind, by the way. And I just wanted to give my way in that those forms are legitimate. This is going to be a commentary about those particular forms. But I want to tell you, there's no particular, I would say, one particular method that's a one size fits all. I want to let you guys know, people out there who are utilizing those processes, you also want to be cautious. You want to be careful and make sure you have your ducks in order, that you've properly done certain things, procedures already, such as authenticating your birth certificate. You want to make sure you at least have done a UCC filing or non-UCC. If you have not done some of these things, or filed for your estate number or your 9-8, then you're potentially putting yourself in harm's way, depending on which procedure you use. A lot of people that are very knowledgeable of this information won't share this with you because they're trying to make money off of you, by the way, selling you their unique particular processes. But I want to let you know, from my experience, there are different methods to this particular procedure, based on how you structure the paperwork, the documentation. Some procedures, the 1099A, which stands for acquisition and abandonment of property, because with these corporations, well, many of them are doing behind the scenes, they're monetizing your end lingus, just like YouTube has monetization for content creators, where you can make profit off of the advertisements behind the scenes. Many of these corporations and so-called debt collectors and creditors are double dipping. They're charging your CUSIP number, which is tied in with your social, that's connected to your BC, that some say bond certificate, you refer to as birth certificate. And CUSIP stands for Committee on Uniform Securities Identification Procedures. Some say identifying the principal. There's different variations, but the SSN is a form of a CUSIP number. And I've gone over this a long time ago, based on an alphanumerical order. The front side, the regular numbers on the front of the Social Security card are part of the Sestacue Trust. The numbers on the back of the Social Security card represent the Foreign Situs Trust under the IMF. Winston Strout talked about this years ago when we only had a certain level of information before the technology became more advanced. This is why I always go back to the basics. The basics are important. They help even newbies and some people who became more advanced down the road understand how these processes work. Now, this is important. Then there's another process where the 1099A gets filed first, and then the OiD gets filed after it. Then there's some out there that say you have to file the form 8281 along with that form. That is not always the case. It depends on, speaking with a very reliable source, if you have a mortgage or certain types of debt instruments or debt securities, and you do so, and there's a procedure, a certain method to fill that out properly. But I want to let you know this is not necessarily a one size fits all. The method that Mr. Hauser was going over, that address that he's shown in the video, where it's, I believe, Constitution Avenue, Washington, D.C., that's one of the departments of the Treasury. That office is also used for other procedures dealing with A for V, acceptance for value to discharge debt. There's a document that investigative journalist Barton Butts wrote years ago. By the way, he was an investigative journalist. There was a report from 2003. I went over this already, where he actually met with a former Secretary of Treasury. By the way, this was many years ago. By the way, I don't know, I can't say exactly, but the report that this was done was from 2003. But I believe, don't quote me, he may have met some years prior, and he wrote a report about his experience dealing with the Internal Revenue Service, rerouting instruments, the FBI, the Treasury, because they play a role in status correction. This is tied in with status correction. That's why I found out. I said to you guys earlier in this video, you want to be careful, and I want to caution you that you understand these methods. That King Stevian, by the way, who Mr. Hauser had gotten into it with, by the way, is utilizing a different procedure. He's utilizing a different 1099 method, and I will say that's more for advanced people. The method that Mr. Hauser is going over, that is for new people, newbies, by the way. For those who don't have a trained eye, I'm someone with experience. I've been studying this type of information in 2004. And even though I haven't gotten to where the point I would like to, I can always provide insight. And I've helped assisted many people behind the scenes, by the way. This is a fact, and this is on the record. I even saw a video that Money Boy Films, who's been subscribed to my channel, who's followed my work, that drops in from time to time, did a short video on his channel showing the documents, some templates I had sent out to some people who were affiliated when that TDA movement broke out back in 2017. And I want to say that gentleman utilized a different process from King Stevian and Mr. Hauser, and he showed, I won't go into all of the details, but he showed how he got a check back for his bills, because they are using your lingus, your exemption. But believe it or not, that coupon voucher, which Winston Strout talked about many years ago, Patrick Devine has talked about this. Many of the older gurus, some may have passed away, some that are, if they're still out there, by the way, but it's been a long time to show you guys the reason I'm going over the history. This is important. They went over these methods, and even though it was basic information before we got to the meat and potatoes, as far as what worked, what processes didn't work, it had to be experimented with through trial and error. And it was stated some years ago that some people actually did go to jail. And I found out with one particular procedure, people were using, they didn't have a trust set up. Now, with the method that King Stevian is sharing over his YouTube channel, I've never met him before. I'm just looking from the outside, going from the outside looking in, because Mr. House's information was sent to me by a good brother I consider in the movement. I've known for a long time. I won't say their name to protect their identity, of course. Sent the information, and I was familiar with that process that Mr. Hauser went over, because that same address, by the way, was also used many years ago. I assisted a former girlfriend of mine using a bond to discharge a debt. I've told this story in the past. I can't say if that procedure still works. And when I actually tried it myself many years ago, I didn't follow it to the T, but there was an instructional manual disc that was given to me by someone more advanced when I started learning this information back around 04, 2005. By the way, I won't say his name. I still remember the gentleman's name. And my former girlfriend, she met the individual many years ago. I'm appreciative of him. There was like a conference that was done, and there was different procedures in the redemption movement. This is why I've stated that some say that all methods are the same. I would say it's better if you get a legal background, because a lot of this information, by the way, pertains to the legal judicial system, by the way. And I may be doing a follow-up video down the road just to give you guys a heads up. The reason this video is more so like a commentary, I wanted to let you guys know I'm still here. By the way, I do plan on down the road, once I get some more time, I'm in the midst of doing certain procedures and things myself behind the scenes, and properly removing myself from certain contracts, and continuing in the fight, because they're using subterfuge to keep many of us enslaved in these contracts, to trap the end lingus, to keep you being a U.S. citizen, a U.S. person, and things of that sort, to make it difficult for you to properly correct your status. And there's a reason why certain gatekeepers and minions and underlings, not only within the judicial system, but gatekeepers that are bad actors that work in the public, some are ignorant, but some are aware why they're trying to keep you enslaved and make it difficult for one to be free. So I am aware, and if you guys are not aware, there's a stampede of people who are waking up, who continue to wake up. And I can tell by looking at the comment sections of this video, there's a lot of people that are hungry for this information. Now, I don't go over this information. I only talk about, or I send templates of this information when I've done private consultations before, and I share with people that these are actual remedies that you can use. Now, even though I have not completed the procedure, I am very confident that there's a particular procedure that works. It's different from the process that Mr. Hauser and King Stevian went over. I'm pretty sure, and I'm confident those methods work. I actually have a private source that moved to Arkansas, that used to live in Michigan, by the way. He's further south of me in the southern state, and he's confirmed that same address that Mr. Hauser did show on those 1099 forms in that video. I can confirm, not only from my former experience when I helped a former girlfriend discharge a debt, but a friend of mine that discharged a debt for a niece for a student loan. And he told me this was back around 2017, still in more recent times. By the way, I was surprised that the method still worked. He said it may take a while or take longer, because I hear when there's a lot of people, you have to keep in mind, utilizing these processes, utilizing these methods, they can take quite a while to be processed. And by the way, I know I may be jumping around a little bit, but piggybacking to Barton Butts, who I just brought up earlier, who was an investigative journalist, it's important you read that report. Yusuf El also went over that information. By the way, Yusuf with High Frequency Radio, he has a YouTube channel. I commend him. He's very advanced. I would say he's more advanced than myself, just giving credit where credit is due. There's other people that are advanced as well, but you have to understand, not all of these processes or procedures are the same. This is not a one-size-fits-all formula. So one form or paperwork may not be required to go with one procedure or one method. But however, it's up to one, they may have to figure that out. When you speak to someone like myself that does have experience the ability that I'm able to bring to the table from what I've seen through trial and error throughout the years from conversing with people privately, I'm able to explain what works, what doesn't work. So I have a greater idea of what could go through or what could put someone in harm's way, by the way. So those interested for those type of things, if they're interested in setting up a consultation with me, that should be in the description box. I generally don't advertise, proselytize, but I give the people what they want. A while ago, only reason I had to set that up was because I was getting inboxed by numerous people some years back, and I went over that information already. But for those interested, it should be in the description box. If not, after this video uploads, when I transfer everything over in the description box under my description about this video, you can check my previous videos for those who are serious about contacting me, and that's for serious inquiries only. Once again, serious inquiries only, and I do get to them on a case-by-case basis and a first-come, first-served basis. So if you haven't heard from me, by the way, this is also a public service announcement. If you have previously contacted me in the past and you did not get a response or reply from me, it's always best to follow up, use a follow-up email. I still do private consultations from time to time. I just wrapped up one not too long ago, but keep in mind, there's some that may slip through the cracks. I do have a busy schedule, and I'm working on other procedures, because you need to continue your education when you're studying something like this. And the experience that I bring to the table is I attended a private event by invitation only some years ago, where I was being taught by an elite group of people. When I actually learned about some more of this information, when new technology information started to come out, how to discharge debt and different methods of how to discharge debt. 1099 procedure, just generally speaking, part of the redemption process, and some may call it the SPC, that stands for Secured Party Creditor process. Some don't believe in Secured Party Creditor, by the way, and understand once again, that what may work for one may not work for another. But however, there are different procedures, and I can confirm that address that Mr. Hauser showed in that video once again for Constitution Avenue down in Washington, D.C. That's one of the departments of the Treasury. They have multiple departments, by the way. Of course, like the Bureau of Fiscal Service, they handle a different department, the Bureau of Public Debt, that also comes up. Those of you all who would be familiar with that whole, TDA movement from some years ago would be familiar with what would actually come up sometimes in the database when people were successful with linking those accounts, until some of them were blocked, by the way, until you utilize the right methods, the right documentation to have a signature card on file, or verification of certain procedures, by the way, to get those to go through. So just something to keep in mind. You also, to prove you have different processes, because some out there will say, well, Dorsey, there's all methods are the same. There's not different processes or procedure. Well, hold on, wait a minute. I can prove that there is. There's a channel called Radiant Clone that is absolutely free on YouTube. Last time I checked, they're still around. You go back, scroll in their archives, scroll down to their older videos, and they have a gentleman, the video should still be there, where he goes over something called the WIFIT process. The WIFIT also utilizes the 1099A, the OiD, and some of those procedures. It may even utilize the 1099B, and some methods it may even utilize the 1099C. I can't remember. I've never used the WIFIT process. However, I'm familiar with it. I had some separate templates from these classes I attended privately last year that I was invited to, that actually dealt with the trademark information, but there were some other groups that branched off and started having their own private discussions and private classes on Zoom, and I had some of the information separately. And the WIFIT process, I can prove, if you look at, is very similar, or has similarities to King Stevian's process versus Mr. Hauser's process. So for those out there wondering about utilizing the 1099A, if you're skeptical, sometimes you're just going to have to put in the trial and error, or get with the team of people. It's best to get with, as I've encouraged people in the past, get with like-minded people who are familiar with this information. It's always best to start off with. But I understand I do understand some people live in certain environments, maybe rural areas, certain areas where they don't have a next door neighbor or relative or someone who's familiar with the information. However, they may have networked or met someone online where maybe you can get with someone in a neighboring state or as close as possible. I recommend starting off with that. It's still very important to still have study groups and to meet with people to go over this information, because two or more heads are better. And that's where I'm still, I actually have been discussing, talking with someone privately. I was explaining, I won't go over, share their information, but someone I discussed where it could be a win-win situation. And they saw what I was referring to. I won't go into the details about it, where I identified they have good organizational, good clerical skills, something there's areas that I've lacked in. Let's say if I was married, I had a spouse or current girlfriend, there would be phenomenal the skill sets, abilities I would be able to have with assisting her with discharging debt, things of that sort. I was unable to find that. But however, I'm good at identifying people's talent, special that people that have special skill sets, special abilities. And this individual agreed. I just said, hey, this is all I ask in return. I looked for that some years ago. It didn't go as planned, as there was people that took the information, the paperwork that I shared with them. They didn't reach back to me to help assist me if they got to higher levels, even versus myself. And that's fine, I said, but it would be nice if people stayed loyal and would reach back. But I understand you can't always depend on that. But if you are a newbie and you have people that you trust and you can form groups with like-minded people, it's best to start off with that, and do as much research and studying as you can. It does help out in the long run, in the end, by the way. So I'm going to jump in the chat very briefly to see who I have in. Looks like I just have Sean Annan. Guys, this is also Q&A. For those watching, don't forget to thumbs up the video, smash the like button. It helps rank higher in the search results. It helps get this information out there. By the way, if you guys want to see more content like this, by the way, when you guys comment, leave a comment after the video and things, I take those types of things into consideration, by the way. And I also have Zoom set up, so down the road, I may be doing a surprise free consultation, by the way. So just keep that in mind, and we can talk about various other methods. I have ideas where we can strategize, those of us where it doesn't have to always be about money, by the way, because I don't profess or claim to be anyone's guru or whatnot. The only reason I ask for a donation is because time equals money, and I got a lot of inboxes, a lot of requests. I still get them from time to time, but not as much since I put information for serious inquiries. That helps keep down on the riffraff. But from time to time, I do handle those consultations in a timely fashion. So once again, if you are interested, but I do have other ideas that can help some of us who may be not as advanced, but are trying to get to much greater levels, much higher levels in this, because there is like an unofficial cash system, by the way, where if you're looking at getting cars, and you can make purchases. Contrary to popular belief, discharges were utilized for a certain procedure, but if you understand how to draw up the purchase orders, if you're trying to get a car or for things of that sort, that there's contracts and things. Winston Strout many years ago did a seminar. Actually, I never fully watched it. My cousin actually gave it to me with him and a friend, a guy up here he asked to help me at the time many years ago. And he stated, Winston Strout talked about on this particular seminar how you would engage in drawing up different contracts for different procedures, kind of like what Mr. Hauser goes over. That is possible, but it can be time consuming using that particular method. As I was informed, a friend of mine did have success using that process to discharge a student loan for a niece some years ago, a relative. Well, he did state to me that process can take 40 up to 60 days and possibly even longer if they are backed up. However, there is another procedure that I am aware of that I actually have access to. I just haven't gotten around to utilizing it yet. And the brother does have a YouTube channel. I'm really surprised. He kind of sneaks under the radar. And I won't say his name, but I'll let you guys do your research. Well, he's shown the evidence and he did a follow-up video back in 2017, I think around that time frame, where he showed he gets a check back for his bill. And he said it wasn't an IRS check. People were telling him don't cash the check. And I knew exactly what he was talking about because I could see the utility company. I think there was PG&E Utility. I think they're in certain states. They're even on the West Coast in California. But certain states utilize different companies. Where I'm at is Detroit Edison, DT Energy. But they are tapping into your Enlingus, your SSQ trust account. And once again, the numbers on the front of the Social Security card, that is part of the SSQ trust, by the way. I see someone just jumped in. William Anderson says, when do you think the RV will take place? Oh, very good question. Even though it's not really related to the topic, my theory was I said this year, but always keep in mind the powers that be have William has dragged this out. They have delayed this for a number of years. They've continued to drag their feet, continue to delay the RV. So I just say keep your head up, remain positive. I have contemplated, just to give you guys a heads up, as far as maybe doing one or two last YouTube videos talking about the dinar and the global currency reset, mainly a comprehensive overview where it would be like a rehash of some of the information I went over that's still important for newbies, a lot of people. And I would go over information that even some gurus that currently still talk about that information. Now, I'm aware pertaining to the dinar, which that's a different process, part of the global currency reset, not to be confused with the Great Reset. The Great Reset, that's what the evil cabal wants to do. The evil ones, by the way, who, if you guys are unaware, last year, as the T-Man was forced out of office, I was informed by several sources, by the way, that they had to file a lawsuit with the World Court because behind the scenes, the Rothschilds and some of the cabal was involved in delaying the global currency reset and holding that up. So at the end of the day, you know, the bankers are, from what I was informed, they're waiting for the access codes from the U.S. Treasury. By the way, the U.S. Treasury, whoever is the head of the Secretary of Treasury, they have the power to make this happen. I've heard from certain bankers some years ago. I put it on the back burner, so I'm like, I don't care anymore. You know, I put that up. You know, I've gone through a stage throughout many years of being patiently waiting for this to happen, and just getting hyped up over and over, where they're telling you we're close, and only to get turned down and to see that it just keeps getting delayed again. Now, there was information that the RV was really supposed to actually take place, by the way, that it was supposed to happen numerous times. I do have a private source that even mentioned to me that he has a source I actually met, but he's closer to a friend of mine. Some years ago, this guy mentioned he saw it show up on Forex one night or whatever site where it temporarily had went to a much higher rate, similar how they have flash crashes with cryptocurrencies. But imagine it went the opposite direction, where the price shot up, where it was for pennies on the dollar. Then all of a sudden it went up in the middle of the night. And I was ironically informed, because there's some that say the gurus aren't telling you the truth, but I disagree. I think there's certain gurus I call intel providers that are knowledgeable, that have been around for years, that I've learned a lot of information from. And I can prove that. I've never met before. And I give a shout out to TNT and Bruce. Their information might not be exactly the same, but they complement each other. I can damn sure tell you that for a fact. I've seen, like, for example, TNT, I learned that there's an international currency book, and I had lost it, and it took me a while to find it, that actually proves that currency is real. I had an experience at Chase Bank some years ago when they used to lie to customers and say, we don't deal with the dinar. And then I had a teller who was, she wasn't given the special word by her higher ups at the time. And she was actually trying to assist me. And she had a book right in front of her that was the foreign currency book, was the actual physical paperback copy. And as she was flipping through the pages, I could actually see the images of the dinar and the Vietnamese dong in that booklet. And then one of her bosses came over and ushered it away, and then proceeded to tell me we don't deal with the dinar. But I saw the evidence right in front of me. See, it's stories like that, guys, where, you know, as the saying goes in the street, you know, game recognized game. You know, at that point, I saw physical proof. but I understand that they were higher ups were telling them to lie because they didn't want, I guess, the general public to know about this and things of that sort. Then I learned years later they were told to stop doing that, and I think we've reached the point now where they don't even sell it anymore because we're getting so close to this happening. So I don't know. I just say I remain optimistic. We'll see what happens. But I would say keep the faith, hang in there. I wouldn't sell any of my foreign currencies if you do have it, if you can afford to keep it. By the way, definitely be patient. But that's my insight. Uh, I would think this year, to answer your question, William, but to be honest, they could push this thing back to 2023. But it wouldn't surprise me. And that would be a long time because it's been damn near about 20 years since one of my sources, my first source that knew about this much longer than myself, that contacted me at the end of 2010 and told me he had been knowing about it since 2003. So 1 year from now, that would be damn near 20 years. And he stated to me repeatedly on multiple occasions, that's a very long time for a revaluation of a foreign currency to take place. Just my thoughts. But back to the subject, dealing with the 1099. I see Mary in the chat says, hello, Mr. Dorsey. Greetings to you, Mary. Thank you for joining. By the way, this is also Q&A. Guys, if you can, don't forget to thumbs up, hit the like button. If you haven't, subscribe to the channel, smash the like button. Keep in mind, you can follow me on social media. If you're looking for the description where to follow me at, once after this video uploads, you can go to a previous video that I have, and you can look in the description box. You can follow me at Dorsey's Resource on Twitter, on Facebook. Normally, after I upload my videos over here, I go on social media, and I really don't make a lot of posts, but I'll upload so you guys can have access to my content if you happen to be on those platforms. I'm also on minds.com. I'm also on Rumble because I've also recommended that down the road we have to get off the YouTubes and some of these platforms. I encourage you to boycott them, or at least to stay informed. There's other web hosting platforms that are growing exponentially, such as Rumble, a video hosting platform that also has live. You have Gab.ai, you have BitChute, you have Band.video, which has awesome information. FreeWorldNews.tv. By the way, check out FreeWorldNews.tv to stay abreast. And what I like is they show the video evidence. They show the the documentation behind what they discuss on their channel. It's not a lot of propaganda that you will see from mainstream media. They don't censor you, so you can also create usernames and logins. You can interact in many cases with other like-minded patriots and people, and you can converse freely without having to worry about being censored if you talk about voter fraud or the vaccine, stuff like that. Notice, or Pizzagate, YouTube was censoring over those three topics I just mentioned, etc. So that's why I encourage you guys, get on these other platforms, because down the road, I'm still working on it, making the transition myself, where hopefully I can upload a lot of videos and content on these other platforms. And some of these other platforms are more private as well. They don't sell your data. You guys got to understand, YouTube, Google, they're data mining your information. Like when you have to confirm your email, or they send a text to your phone, they're what they're doing is getting you in contracts, keeping you a U.S. citizen, and making it difficult or harder for you to change your status or keep your status corrected, and that can affect you getting a diplomatic passport. By the way, those who are utilizing the passport, little things like that, even based on what type of bank accounts you have. I go into more details for those who have questions that set up private consultations, because if you're still involved in some of those lingering contracts, there's some of these discharge processes or remedies may be even more difficult to go through for you. Just something to keep in mind. But once again, if you want to follow me on social media, it should be in the description box. By the way, hold on for a second, guys. Okay. Once again, you're joining Dorsey's Resource. I'm your host, John Dorsey, doing business as a legal fiction. By the way, I'm aware. The topic of this video was mainly pertaining to my weigh-in about the 1099A, the OIDs, giving you guys a heads up. If you're utilizing those forms, there are different processes, different procedures, different methods. So it's not a one size fits all formula. And keep in mind, there's different procedures that do work, by the way. And I went over that have been proven to work. So the recent controversy behind King Stevian and Mr. Hauser's channel, both content creators. Mr. Hauser popped up recently. Some consider, like, say there's been a new guru that's hit the scene. There's, of course, other names out there that go over this information. Luciferian Prince, who I think puts out awesome, great work on his YouTube channel. He's gone more private. I think he has a Patreon account. Now you have Walter Davis Bay out there. You have Radiant Clones channel. It's a numerous list. You have Mosiah Corporation that I think they process paperwork. Who else out there? James C. Lovett's channel. By the way, I think he's gone more private, where some of his videos he does are for members only, membership only, but he's been around for a while, puts out very excellent input. So I encourage you guys, study a plethora of people, and you will understand, you will understand how these different methods and procedures work a lot better. And you can mix and dabble different processes. Like I say, to reiterate, some procedures they're not going to all be the same. Like the method that King Stevian is using for his 1099, I'm pretty sure he gets remedy just like Mr. Hauser does. Well, his procedure is more advanced, where that would be for people who have an authenticated birth certificate, or that process of procedure would be used for people who have their trust set up, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. There's I'm trying to think what else his procedure pertains to. Those who have the estate number set up. That's the difference between King Stevian's process. I didn't see a lot of people mention that, because it looks like you have a lot of newbies in that process that Mr. Hauser goes over. That is pertaining to some older information, because that same address was utilized, by the way, to discharge debt, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. Hold on real quick, guys. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so once again, also Eon, I forgot to bring up Eon. I know a lot of you guys are familiar with Eon as well. And big shout out to, I always forget a lot of times, make honorable mention, because I go over many of the advanced people in the movement. But big shout out to the Hellraiser and the work he's doing over there. I was invited some years ago. I was on one of Money Boy's late night talks podcast, and it was one of Hellraiser's students over there. So I had went over some of the most advanced people. I said Yusuf L, he's more advanced. Akeem L, Jonah Bay, commend those brothers. Very advanced processes, procedures they've had, and been around for quite a while. And he said, you forgot to mention Hellraiser, or the Hellraiser. And I said, you're right, brother. Hellraiser out of Chicago, trade capital. Honorable mention, big shout out once again to the work that Hellraiser is doing. He deserves, I always forget. So my bad. He's someone highly advanced. Down the road, I'm considering, adding to my repertoire, because he did tell me to contact him, to reach out to him a while ago last year, and I didn't get around to doing that yet. But want to make honorable mention to the work he's putting in and the work he's doing. You also have another channel out there, Don Kalam, by the way, is doing big things. His channel, he's a content creator, influencer, talks about redemption education, redemption information. Check out Don Kalam. And the reason I'm bringing these channels up, guys, you want to do your research. If you're a newbie, you're new to this information. A lot of people ask me, say, hey, Dorsey, how can I get as advanced as you are to the level, or what do you recommend if I'm new to this? What I recommend is you do a lot of reading. Make sure you read a lot. Try to find those sites that have free documents. even if you have to go to Scribs, my friend of mine told me that's owned by the Discovery Channel, or a lot of those old secured party creditor websites that are still around. By the way, FamGuardian, .org, Family Guardian, or Sovereign Defense Ministry, SEDM.org has a lot of good legal, lawful information with procedures. If you're wondering how to stop child support, what else? Discharge debt, to go exempt with your job, your workplace, and you want to know the laws or the process or procedures. They give you the laws, these sites, but you have to know what to look for. I just gave you guys a jewel, by the way. So it takes time. This may not happen overnight. Some people have a photographic memory. Some people are more advanced than others. You have people out here who are savants that can retain a lot of information, by the way. So they're going to, they may get their paperwork done faster. But don't worry about that. Take your time, because you want to make sure what you're doing is correct. You want to make sure you have a solid foundation under your belt, by the way. So once again, guys, just keep in mind the 1099A. That form stands for acquisition and abandonment. You have to make sure you properly order those forms. You can't just print them up online, by the way. And just FYI, I did give a disclaimer. I'm going to go over this again. This is not financial advice. This is not legal. This is not tax advice. In any event, it's encouraged you seek a competent professional. You seek an appropriate tax advisor if you have questions. By the way, if you would like to reach out to me for serious inquiries only, if you want to know what I know, you want to know what I know more in depth, because there's still certain things I'm holding back from, by the way, then you're welcome to go through the process. I have it simply in the description box. For those interested for serious inquiries, you can set up a private consultation with me. And I go on a first come, first served basis. Just putting it out there if you want to know what I know. But there's information. I encourage you guys to research these different content creators, influencers. Watch their videos. Learn from them. Read the documents. It will help you connect the dots. Akeem L, go to his channel, listen to his audios. He has a YouTube channel, puts in very good work. Jonah Bay, by the way, listen to his video, even though he's using a different procedure. I would say King Stevian's 1099 procedure is for people who are more advanced, who are using that 1041 estate procedure. But remember, you can still discharge debt, because that process that Mr. Hauser's going over, that's really for more so for newbies, because that deals with the in lingus. The in lingus dealing with the all caps, the straw man name. By the way, you have a right pursuant to House Joint Resolution 192, Public Law 73-10, that's codified in the statutes at large, Statute 4848, Section 112. By the way, made explicitly clear. They've just hidden a lot of this stuff, a lot of the remedies. And then you have the fraud going on with the Federal Reserve Bank, and them purposely not training their underlings, their gatekeepers, or teaching you how to convert the securities and stuff like that for these various different discharge processes. Because, for example, 1099 isn't the only discharge process. You guys know you have A for V. I met a lady, she told me recently she's not really doing YouTube videos. I think Lady Bijou. I'm not sure. I remember she did show me her YouTube channel some years ago. I would give her a shout out in case she's watching. By the way, she's more advanced than I am, very proficient at the SPC process. And she told me she used to work with Yusuf some years ago. So Yusuf may be familiar. I spoke to her maybe a week and a half ago, by the way. And she's doing big things. She's based out west. By the way, she's very advanced, and she stated to me she's perfected the A for V process. By the way, she told me that Doug Riddle, who's like an old Patriot guru, similar to Winston Strout, Patrick Devine, Rice McLeod, a lot of those old school guys, commended her for perfecting the A for V process. For those on the inside in this particular space, this particular discipline that deals with redemption, education, sovereignty. She told me that. So big shout out to Doug Riddle. Those guys have contributed a lot to the education. Dr. Sam Kennedy, Rod Class. I mean, there's so many to name. Rice McLeod, Kevin Hines, Gene Keating, by the way, big who I've actually met. He actually did a seminar back in Detroit back in '06. By the way, I spoke to one of his students. I had a private consultation with. She told me he's still around, but he does just Zoom classes. He doesn't really do public seminars anymore. A lot of his information is circulated within the prison system. Gene Keating, big shout out to the research that Gene Keating's done out there. Commend his work, just like Winston Stroud and others out there. So many to name that have put in work and the research out there that has helped us get to where we're at now with the technology that we have and where we're moving towards to get better at this. And those of us who are trying to obtain higher levels in these procedures, where we're trying to become like a type 1, type 2 level civilization, by the way, and become more advanced. Because there's higher levels to this. Trust me on that. Best believe. There's other things I'm not going into details. I know a procedure how one would travel, by the way, with their auto. I haven't done it yet, but I have actually the whole procedure. And sometimes these processes can be time consuming, and I just have to, I can procrastinate. I will admit that. But I was telling a friend, you have to home in sometimes and just take off a week or day to just get really disciplined. I think the type of work schedule that I have it interferes with that, because you guys know I've been on this graveyard shift for a number of years. And had I known certain things, I would have been free by now. I wouldn't have had to punch a clock anymore. I'm really close. But God willing, there's amazing things happening behind the scenes. I just don't go into details. I don't share some of my personal information. But I may give tidbits out there. I am invested in cryptocurrencies, hard assets. By the way, a certain amount I can say that's liquid. I'm disciplined to not touch it, and things. And I'm looking at building multiple streams of income, and I'm looking at other ways down the road, because one of the things they use as a weapon against us is the banking system, the financial system. As you know, financial slavery and voluntary servitude, it's real to this day. Slavery years ago, hundreds of years ago, was in whips and chains. Nowadays, it's mental slavery. One of the first guys I met when I first got in this movement many years ago, brother went by the name Dave. I didn't know his last name. He knew he was good friends with the other guy that helped assist me with Del Rico, I call Dale for short. Big shout out to those brothers. I met back in November of 2004. And I called, one of the last times I spoke to Dave was in '06. And Dave told me, I asked him about, does this stuff tie in with the New World Order, the mark of the beast? And he told me, it's messed me up. He said, what number do you have in your head already? And I said, he played a little trivia with me. He said, think about it. He said, what number is, he said, the mark of the beast is already here. And I said, you serious? Even though they don't have the physical chip, yeah, it's not inside of me. And I'm not referring to the jab, but that's we're into the future now, a lot closer. But he said, what number, if you think about it, is already in a lot of people's head? You need it for a lot of activities, especially pertaining to being a U.S. citizen, for certain contracts on the public side. I said, the SSN number? And he said, right. I said, whoa, I never looked at it like that. And did you know when Jonah Bey came out, when I recorded one of his first seminars in Farmington Hills, Michigan, by the way, from a long time ago, back in 2014, he showed the law in Title 42 of the United States Codes. I believe it was Section 666. It's connected even to the child support law. And that's not a coincidence how they set this stuff up cryptically. Because I have a friend, he can break down how this stuff goes back historically, like what these words and stuff mean. How this stuff goes back to the ancient god Hermes and Greek. This is tied in with Greek mythology. It's not a coincidence in the regular system when people pledge for Greek fraternities at sororities at colleges and stuff. It's been set up that way for years. There's a hidden system. You have to watch the movie National Treasure with Nicolas Cage to understand, to overstand what I'm sharing with you guys. A lot of this information is cryptic. Yusuf has talked about this too, to buy the book called Paper Trip. If those familiar, you have to think like certain people. I'll just leave it at that. If you're familiar with the book Paper Trip, and there's some other books out there to give you ideas to navigate. By the way, so the brother was telling me about the Social Security number, which there is a process that's used with the SSN and the 1099, by the way. But I won't give you guys all that. If you guys want to know more, you have to set up a private consultation with me to know more. But there's a process that a brother's using, and he's still on YouTube, by the way. I won't say who, give you guys some research, a little trivia. But he did a follow-up video to show, well, this stuff is real. And I remember hearing Winston Strout mention years ago that the bills and stuff that you get, they're actually double dipping. They're double charging you. That's a coupon, a voucher. A lot of women, when my family, I had a former coworker who used to get on me because I used to go, to McDonald's. They call McDevils quite a bit. And she used to tell me, you're wasting money. You should look up the coupons, look for their deals and stuff. And, coupons stand for also vouchers. Sometimes are full credit. Sometimes you have a coupon or voucher. It can pay for the whole meal, or it says a free meal, or it isn't just necessarily half off. Well, did you know that piece on the bill that you receive that says voucher, and look at some of them actually say voucher on there. It has a part that you cut off, and some of you guys familiar, there's a different discharge process that's connected to the A for V where you can turn that into a money order. And some processes you don't have to do that. That's why I said there's different processes and there's different 1099 processes. But there was a different discharge process. But there are some processes you do use the SSN number, by the way. So there's a process, even if you haven't completely changed your status and you're at a certain level, because there is a caste system. Just like when someone has a 3-star passport versus a 4-star, 5-star, there's a difference. That's a caste system. The 4-star is higher, is more privileges that come with the 4-star. I have a private source that has a 4-star, and he explained to me, he was one of the only sources that explained to me what it takes to get the 5-star, but he understands some of the difficulty and some of the obstacles they put in place to get the 5-star. So I know some of that already. I mentioned that a long time ago. I had one of James C. Lovett's students contacted me for a private consultation. I just happened to ask. She told me she was studying under James. I had no idea. I just said, if you don't mind me asking. But I provided insight to her at the time. But that's how we, like minds, we grow in this. The technology gets better when we're not afraid. We share information. Many of us have borrowed processes, borrowed procedures, different strategies. Sword sharpens sword. So get people out there. I say to King Stevian and Mr. Hauser, we're all in this fight together. There's people trying to gain their freedom. Not one method is the same. There's different procedures, different processes. So I just wanted to share this information with you guys about this. You would know what to look for before I wrap this video up. I'm going to get to the comment section real quick. If you haven't done so, don't forget to smash the like button. Make sure you subscribe. So hopefully I answered their question, William Anderson, about the RV, even though this video is mostly about the 1099 process and discharge. William Anderson says, thank you. Good info. Appreciate you. No problem. Chief Vegas says, peace, Doris. Thank you, Chief, for joining. Appreciate you. By the way, so going over once again, the 1099A, the concept is what's happening is like if you have a mortgage, a student loan, when you sign a promissory note, many of these corporations, they take that note, they securitize that, they sell that on the Circle 750, and they turn that note into what's called a derivative. They sell that on the derivatives market, by the way. So they're getting paid 2 and 3 times because they know how to convert the security after you paid them. And it's actually already, all your bills and stuff is actually already prepaid for. So they're turning around and they're charging you again for what's already paid for off your in lingus trust. But so what you're utilizing, because the A that deals with acquisition and abandonment of property, many of y'all, this is a secret. This is very powerful what I'm about to tell you guys. Some of you guys don't understand. There's tangible and then there's intangible property. Look at the IRS form instructions some years ago. It talked about tangible and intangible property when I read some of the instructions, I believe for the 1099A and C. Look in the instruction. They come generally, if you order the forms, there's instructions that come with them. And it talked about tangible and intangible property. Did you know your signature is actual property, not just the tangible real estate? Like there's people working in the public that were loan officers and stuff, and they've only been indoctrinated or trained to get securities brokerage licenses on the public. They haven't been trained about the private side. When you go through the process of the mortgage, very similarly to a student loan, they have you sign a promissory note. And did you know, just like when I was in college, I didn't understand this, people would still get a refund check for like what was left over from the loan, but they still took that instrument, they call it a security instrument, and they securitize that, or some say monetize. And a lot of times, years later, when it's in default, you can't pay it back. Some instances where people have done the validation process, which still has some similarities to discharge, even though the debt validation is different. That's another procedure people have used to get rid of child support, student loans, stuff like that, is the debt validation process. And that involves like how can I put it? I have to brush up the when you're exhausting your administrative remedies, like your affidavit of truth, and demand, your affidavit of default, then your affidavit with opportunity and notice to cure, because that's part of due process. You have to give them warning just like they have to give you notice. They use the same method, debt collectors. You use this back on them. And then if they don't respond, then you send judgment of default. Then it becomes judgment of estoppel, which in commerce, that means he who does not deny admits fault. You got them in judgment of estoppel. That's a default judgment. That's part of exhausting your administrative procedure. That's why some people's liens and stuff weren't working in the past, so they were getting in trouble using UCC liens. They weren't utilizing the proper administrative remedy. They did not put the person that they were suing in their private capacity on notice when they sent their affidavits to them and file it with the county recorder or UCC office. They didn't go through the proper procedure, proper administrative process. Yusuf teaches, he had a class. That's why I say he's more advanced. Some years ago, me and a team of people, we went in on that webinar. That's the purpose of having those classes, to teach you that information, by the way. And it's very important. And that's what you will utilize, those particular methods, when you have situations where you're involved in a debt dispute, other than using that's a different type of discharge, because at the end of the day, it gets settled. They have to sell, a lot of times they sell those securities, they sell that debt to a bank. And then what that bank does, they sell it, or the debt collection company, they sell it to another bank, another debt collector, and the bank takes on that loan, and they take that instrument and they sell that on the derivatives market. So behind the scenes, they're getting paid, but then they're charging your in lingus, your all caps name. That's a legal fiction, because they're saying you're an enemy of the state pursuant to the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917. You didn't go through the procedures to change your status. You didn't protect yourself. By the way, that's why I mentioned earlier, it would behoove you to make sure you do a birth certificate authentication. You file a UCC1, you do a DBA, you trademark your name. These things properly will protect you, and utilizing these different methods. So when the agents or the men come in black suits knocking on your door and your hands are shaking like, oh my God, what do I tell them? I don't know what to say. Then you see they look your name up in the record, say, may we please have your ID, and say if you do still have some of those public contracts, public licenses, or state ID cards, when you do give it to them and they go run your name and swipe it in the system, they say, oh, this person says, please assist, do not detain. Oh, he's on the do not detain list. And that If they're using a lean database that stands for Law Enforcement Information Network, it goes to the NCIS, that's the FBI's database, which is linked to Homeland Security, and it says, leave this person alone, or they're going to be able to fine you or bring suit against you for messing with the diplomat. That's levels to this. Levels to this. So just something to keep in mind. I'm not quite there yet, but I work in a particular discipline where I've been able to get information from people who are former military, former police. That's how I know about lean database. I've never been a police officer. I work as a security guard, but lean stands, it's an acronym for Law Enforcement Information Network. A lot of times there's other methods to travel to protect yourself. They run people's plates all the time. It's interesting. In Michigan, they had this on a local news recently. The state police did a study, and they said they do pull minorities over at a higher rate. I said, "Duh, you guys been doing this for years. Why now all of a sudden?" Because I believe there's an agenda behind some of these things they're pushing. But believe it or not, minorities, I was told privately, our bonds and stuff are worth a lot more because they know we're tied into the land. Many of us who are indigenous aboriginals, our bonds and stuff are tied in. By the way, there is a connection with your birth certificate and SSN card. When you were born, if you were born at a public hospital, they know everything about you. I went over that in a previous video. They've done your astrological chart. They have your blood type. Remember when my niece was born, I don't have any children myself, but I was at the hospital with my younger sister. This is some years ago in Michigan. I was at Providence Hospital. And I said this, I didn't want to, my sister, she's still woozy. I was in the hospital room. Afterwards, I said, did the nurse come in and take Amir's blood yet, or the baby's blood? And my sister said, what? She was still, maybe it was too squeamish for her at the time for me to be going that in depth. I said, oh, never mind. I didn't really go more in depth. She needed to still rest up. You know what it's like when after a woman's, had a baby, she's conceived, she's really tired. It's a hell of an experience. So shortly thereafter, the nurse came in and took the blood. And I learned from listening to Alex Jones' show many years ago, he mentions that there's a government agency called DARPA. They may not be as well known. They're an acronym for Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, where they take the blood of every newborn baby that's born. And they store it in a secret database with information, because there's information. The doctor has X amount of days. They have to get that birth certificate signed. That's why they pressure parents into signing that birth certificate. And they have to get that over to the local Department of Vital Statistics. Then from there, they're sent over to the state vital statistics in your state. That's why a lot of times you get the long form birth certificate from your state capital. They should have both of them. If it's not at your local registrar's office or local, vital statistics, then a lot of times nowadays they've consolidated it where they make it where you got, like in Michigan, you got to go through the state now. They got rid of Herman Kiefer. But I think in my home state, Ohio, you can still get the basic one at City Hall in Cleveland. And then I know where it's at in Columbus, where to get my long copy. By the way, I know where to go. It's not too far from Ohio State Stadium football where they play at. I've been there, drove down there myself back in 2014, and I saw both versions. I had to tell the people there, they were trying to print me a lot of the ones that I got from downtown City Hall in Cleveland. I was the short form that has less information about your parents. But I told them I want the long form. I already had the short form, which one of my sources told me the short form is the stock certificate. The other form is a different type of certificate, form of a securities instrument. By the way, when you get into that discipline, people out there who sell securities licenses, that's why when people get car insurance, you want to look into assurance. Get the surety bond created. This is why they're charging people more, because you're in the system. There's underwriters. They have to go get securities licenses. They're writing bonds, but they're pulling you in the system with a bunch of other people, and they're charging you exorbitant rates. And some people they're playing favoritism with that live in the suburbs or outside the city are paying much less. But down the road, when you learn the higher level information, you'll learn to go through a private broker or draw up the contract yourself. The security, if you have a holding company, you'll be able to monetize, and there's ways to have pay for the surety company or surety bond person to drop the bonds to protect you. But there's certain rules for self-insurance you have to have in place, by the way, you have to look up the laws for your state. You might have to have your car might have to be under a trust or LLC. May not, but also your lingus, by the way, is part of a it's tied in with the insurance thing. So there is a way to draw up. So if you become a master at setting off the debt, you will be able to accomplish other remedies. It's things like that I can go more in depth about. Just to give you guys an idea. By the way, so I'm gonna jump in the chat. See, somebody else says, Carl Tomley says, "Wow, I live in Michigan and I have a private plate on my automobile that states foreign national." Okay, awesome. He says, "I have a long form live birth certificate." Okay, wow, Carl, sounds like you're pretty advanced. If you're still in the chat, so how's that process with the private plate? How's that work for you? Have you been pulled over? Have you had success rate? Have you been left alone? Or your IDs and stuff like that? This is where it can get like a gray area, because sometimes, some instances, people have done things halfway where their IDs were protected, where the police were able to take the automobile, but they weren't, or vice versa. They were able to take the person to jail, but they couldn't touch the automobile. Some people are covered both areas. By the way, because you can, the do not detain list, that's another video that I planned on doing. Some say, is the do not detain list real? I can do a video about that now that I have Zoom software. By the way, I have to do that from my probably from my place. I could probably do it at work if I'm on my laptop, but I'm using StreamYard software right now. I am at the plantation, by the way, but maybe down the road, you guys remind me, I can do a video to give you guys introductory and go over talk about the do not detain list. My mom, I piqued her curiosity one time. She said, I would like to, when I was trying to break this stuff down, because I know this can sound like foreign language to some people. I had a friend that told me he was on the fence about this information, because people that are not familiar with these types of methods, this kind of can freak them out. This can spook them, but this is not intended to do that. That's why I wanted to provide insight and let you guys know those 1099 documents, those are different processes. Once again, King Stevian, he's using a different process that's more advanced than Mr. Howell. If you go to his channel, he explains the different procedures. Like when you start talking about 1041, that's where you've already gotten a state set up. Some people I talk to don't have that set up yet. And then there's a process where you can reconvey that over to the 9-8, or have your foreign trust own control the estate. And the estate will use you'll to do business on behalf of the SSN, to lock that up. There's a method to this, method to the madness. So just understand, don't get spooked or scared, but make sure, if you haven't, you've done your authentication process. Because if you're afraid the agents are going to show up knocking at your door, men in black suits, by the way, then it would behoove you to, also it's important, a lot of newbies, if you're ever attempting any of these processes, don't ever, you need to do this ASAP. Get rid of the voter registration. I can't stress this enough. Cancel, terminate. Go to your local Department of Elections in your area. Find out where the hell they're at. All the previous areas you've lived at, even if you lived in other states, if you can get there. Get rid of that goddamn voter registration. And don't be an organ donor. Those are also tying you, and that's keeping you from potentially getting your 4-star, 5-star passport as well. I heard they've updated the DS11 application. I haven't done that yet, guys, so don't feel bad. Even though I'm advanced, I haven't got to certain processes yet. I know some of you guys have, but that's another method that's used to upgrade your status. Because, see, they're trying to make this more difficult. And there's a certain individual, I mentioned his name earlier. Big shout out to, by the way. He knows who he is. I commend him. He's done awesome, miraculous work. And I even got an email from him, both my email addresses. He has a class coming, an updated webinar on a procedure, because they've changed that DS11 procedure, by the way, to make things more difficult for people correcting their status. But one of the things to keep in mind is you want to practice limited contact. So when I do a video down the road, make sure you guys remind me about these videos. Make sure you leave a comment, or just if you email me, it doesn't have to be about private consultation. Just you can email me, say, hey Dorsey, this is a reminder. I want to see you do a video about the do not detain list, or I want to see you do a video. How do I remove myself from the contracts? You guys put the pressure on me, guys. You know, that's what helps keep me busy. Even though I'm busy and I get around to it, I'll eventually reply. If you don't get a reply from me, just send a follow-up email. Even, you know, I will get back with you. But you know, I can help break this stuff down. Now that I have Zoom software, just to give you guys a heads up, I have some ideas for those of you guys who are serious and want to go to the next level. By the way, hit me up if you're interested, because like, to me, it's not always about the money. I love learning about this information, but let's make it where we all can benefit each other and just demonstrate, especially if you're here locally, and say, hey, I may know something you may not know, because I'm not a know-it-all. Some of you guys help me connect the dots. But because of my experience, I've been in this movement a very long time. My insight has been very impactful with assisting people make decisions. And that's based on my intellectual property, by the way, because people feel like, I've had people tell me they feel like I'm trustworthy. They like the way that I break information down. So that's part of my unique intellectual property. By the way, that's the only reason I ask for donations. Once again, that's because I'm busy, and that's just to consolidate time. By the way, is to schedule an appointment. But guys, we can also, for those who are serious, just hit me up and we can do a private Zoom class. And I may learn, and we can share information. And there's people who have already done this. I was on a class, was it, I think last year, I think it was, or the year before. I'm kind of losing track as we're moving into the future. And it's saying sword sharpens sword, so we could assist one another. I know about some advanced methods that can help protect you from the police, even if you're not on the do not detain list, but some other things that are guaranteed, that I have a private source. By the way, I won't say their name. And matter of fact, I even found out about a guy on YouTube who knows about this information. He doesn't discuss it as much. He gets into herbalism. I won't say the name of his channel, but I was informed privately, and I actually found a video of his that helped me explain how this particular method works, and why a friend of mine has gotten success, and it's helped protect him with dealing with traveling. And this other individual broke this down. Well, he doesn't talk about, his channel mainly focuses on herbalism. He started talking about cryptocurrencies more recently. I won't say the name of his channel for those out there in the know, because some people, I don't want to necessarily make them public. By the way, you guys have to do your own research. But if you want to know things like this, you know, we can have a private session. This can be a win-win situation. And because when we get to the next level with Jonah Bay, Akeem L, others, you guys help me get to the money, Yusuf L, and there's different methods to discharge debt or to set off debt. Then we would have more money will be in our pockets to pay you guys for the webinars or seminars. Or we can put our money together, which I've done with people in the past, private groups, will say, hey, you put $100 in, you put $100 in, and we go and pony up and get us a webinar. Those classes are important because they upgrade over time. There's updated courses that you need. You know what I mean? Just like for people who test for insurance licenses, mortgage licenses, to be a broker, or what's something else, a martial arts. Let's say if you practice combative arts, or if you've been in the military before, you know there's different classes. That's important for training. And those classes help you understand these disciplines. They help you navigate. That's the purpose of why there's different classes. And that's why I went over the different content creators that teach this type of information, by the way, like Don Kalam, James C. Lovett, King Stevian, Mr. Hauser's channel. I can't think of his first name. That's why I said Mr. Hauser. Who else out there? Radiant Clone. Good work. But check out his older videos, even though he uploads a lot of Patrick Devine videos. Those are still critical, important part of for newbies, by the way. But check out You know, these different channels, Akeem Hill, by the way, Jonah Bay. You will learn, it will help you connect the dots on how, if you do mix and dabble, mix and match different processes, Yusuf L, Hellraiser, you will get a better understanding of how these processes correlate. Like what Hellraiser's doing with the what do you call it, business credit. That's another form of remedy. Some have asked me in the past, hey Dorsey, how do I apply business classes to this type of information? And that's a good question. What you can do is study up on Hellraiser's information and then check out Don Kalam's channel and see how they complement one another. And see, when you study different people's work, you absorb information. I'm giving you guys a skill set that I have. You become smarter. I do this with cryptocurrencies all the time. That's why I said, if I know what I know 2 years ago, what I taught myself last year through trial and error, I made some mistakes. I should have known when to pull out the market. I didn't know about taking profit. I taught myself all these things. What I did is I subscribed to multiple channels that dealt with cryptocurrencies. So with any discipline you want to learn about, you have to be hungry. I'm always a student. I'm never too old to learn. Stay humble. These are secrets. Continue to learn. Sometimes, like I said, to reiterate, this information gets updated. There's cabal people changing the passport information to make it more difficult for people freeing themselves. They're mad. They losing too many slaves. They want you to be a U.S. citizen slave. They want you to be public. And that's another thing. Not only don't be a registered voter or organ donor, you don't want to be a U.S. citizen. I know it sounds backwards, ass backwards, contrary to popular belief, but it's a benefit privilege. Guys, you have to remind me about doing a video on, I'm giving you guys a lot, but you guys have to remind me to do a video about removing yourself from contracts. I could have gone more thoroughly. I did some videos in the past. I still have those templates, and it's a good blueprint because it'll help you change your status and put you on a form of the do not detain list. There's a poor man's version. I could even do a webinar called the poor man's do not detain list. So before you get on the big one where you do the injunction with some of the advanced processes that Jonah Bay and Akeem Hill has, there's a poor man's do not detain list that can get you on there just by simply removing yourself from certain contracts. But some of you guys still refuse, and I talk to you, still registered voters. Get rid of that fucking voter registration. That's going to keep you from, it's going to inhibit you from being a foreign national. It's going to inhibit you from correcting your status. It's going to keep you from getting that 4 or 5 star passport. It's going to make you public, as well as checking U.S. citizen box on a job application. Tell them, don't be afraid. I did this. I was doing gig work for a second company. They let me use my state number. They gave me a W-9. I didn't use my SSN. I used my state number, and I put right on there. Foreign national, you can convert the terms of the contract. Person looked at it, was like, whoa, and you have a right to reserve your rights. Pursuant to, in the state of Michigan, the Uniform Commercial Code section is codified in MCL 440. Did you know the police officers, judges, lawyers, they're supposed to go by the MCLs, that stands for Michigan Compiled Laws and the Michigan Court Rules. And part of the rules of civil procedure. Michigan Compiled Law 440, which used to be 1-207, was updated to Uniform Commercial Code 1-308, which is codified in Michigan Compiled Law 440.1308, states, in connection with my signature, I have reserved my common law right not to be compelled to perform under any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. And furthermore, I do not accept the compelled benefit of any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. All rights are reserved. Now understand, sometimes you have to fight, because we had secretaries of states here preventing people illegally from putting all rights reserved on their driver's license, which is a contract. And this law specifically states, because the driver's license is a contract in the Michigan Compiled Law, and they try to give you a document and say the state policy, but is your policy the law? And if it's not the law, then you're breaking the law, and that's where you have a right to call the sheriff on them or file a police report, get the name of the clerk who's refusing to allow you to file that information. Yeah, have the law with you too. It's good to print it up. Bring a copy of the print, and then you go to the Library of Congress or National Archives. You can have these laws printed up, get certified copies, and have the laws printed up. By the way, remember these are governmental places. Go to Washington, D.C. Some states you have local archive museums. You can have that certified under notary seal. Have that with you on standby. If you at the Department of Motor Vehicles, the Secretary of State, they refuse to. You politely ask the clerk, does the law state that? If they're saying you can't sign this way or whatever, and you politely ask them, is that stated within the law? I can't sign this way. Okay, may I have your name? Okay, also, what is the branch number to this Secretary of State, Department of Motor Vehicles? So you can file a complaint with the state, and then you can also further file complaints with other agencies. You may even be able to possibly sue that person in their private capacity, because what gave them legal authority, what gave them delegation of authority under the Constitution to make a legal determination of your affair? Think about it. Once again, that lawyering. They're practicing a law without a license, because now they're making a legal determination of your affair, and they're blatantly violating Michigan compiled law 440.1308 that says you have a right to sign all rights reserved. That's what the purpose of that law is for. Once again, originally used to be in Uniform Commercial Code 1-207. They changed it to 1-308, but it's codified in every state. You might, in Ohio, it's the Ohio Revised Codes. You have to look up what section the UCC codes are codified in. In Michigan, it starts with 440. That's what the Uniform Commercial Code section is. It states, in connection with my signature, I have reserved my common law right not to be compelled to perform under any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement that I did not enter into knowingly, voluntarily, and intentionally. And furthermore, I do not accept the compelled benefit of any unrevealed contract or commercial agreement. This is what this clearly states. But we have gatekeepers, a lot of times, that have tried to cock block and do things criminally, and that's where you have to take it and enforce the law and exercise it properly, and have the sheriffs on standby to have them arrested on the spot, and have the law show the sheriffs or file a police report. This is where they're breaking the law. They're not allowing you to sign this way. They're telling you the state won't allow me. And you ask, is that what the law states? Because your policy is not the law. You can have a policy, but is that based in the law? Obviously, it's not. I just gave you the law. See, and you don't have legal authority. They don't have delegation of authority because they're acting as a public servant. What gave them authority to make a legal determination of your affair? Do they have a P number? Are they licensed? So that means they're practicing the law without a license. And as a public officer working for the Secretary of State, they're working for a public corporation, which is a subsidiary of the United States Corporation pursuant to Title 28, Section 3002, that states the United States is a federal corporation. You see? Yeah, now you smack them in the head. So I just had to give you guys some ammunition. Some of the things that these gatekeepers are doing, you make them understand, enforce the law, and they'll stop getting away with these criminal things that they're doing when more people start standing up doing this. And kudos to the Supreme Court for the decision. Unfortunately, I do feel they didn't get it right. The nurses' mandates are illegal or criminal. That's clearly unconstitutional. Understand this. You have the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. By the way, understand that. You have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Understand that. It's just something to keep in mind. So, you guys are rolling in the comment section. So, let me get to the comments. By the way, in a little bit, as I head to my next stop, I had to catch up with my paperwork. I'm still on a patrol, but I want to give you guys some ammunition. How these gatekeepers, what they were doing years ago, and still doing this stuff, not trying to have people sign their name a certain way, and you may not know they're practicing a law without a license. You can sue them in their private capacity. Make sure you get the name. If they don't want to give you their name, the manager of that branch, Department of Motor Vehicles, get the name, get their name, or get their branch number to that institution. Like if it's in Michigan, this scared the shit out of one clerk I did this to, talking about one of her coworkers said, "Oh, so sovereign citizens tried to come through here." And then the lady, she said, "Oh, he's asking for the branch number." Oh, she got shook after that because I'm going to Lansing to file at the state capitol. I can get that branch shut down. Y'all are doing a criminal operation. But I didn't follow through with it. I was nice. But, you know, had them shook. I asked for the branch manager. And this makes them be compliant and stop doing this stuff to try to stop people from getting their freedom. So that's why they're gatekeepers. Sometimes they're not aware of what the hell they're doing because they've just been taught spookism and they haven't investigated or properly researched this information because they're still supposed to follow the laws. They're a public corporation. See, by them being in the public, that's public policy. They have to follow the statutes and codes. That's why the police and the judges and lawyers have to go by the Michigan court rules and the MCLs. That's under the statutes. You see, you're using their weapons back against them. That's why if you're going in Costco, for example, they had a sign that said "Don't sell alcohol to minors," and it had the specific MCL, Michigan compiled law, to tell you that law means that right on the spot. So those clerks, you're supposed to be able to call the police, have that clerk arrested if they're refusing to let you sign that way. This will work in Chicago. You got to look up what's the laws for Illinois. But just make sure you tell the police you have a friend that's a police officer. You tell them explain this to them ahead of time. But the sheriffs are legally, lawfully supposed to come there and arrest them if they're breaking the law, or make sure you file a police report if they feel like it's too petty to do that, but show where they broke the law. Had them arrested on the spot. They want to pull this mess. Yeah, these are remedies and things people have done and you actually can do. And if not, they want to play hard-headed, then you get utilize an administrative procedure. Do affidavit of notice where they violate you. Do also Freedom of Information Act requests, or find out what's their name. Do a Title 42 lawsuit under color of law. They go on your employee records. You have their full name. You serve them notice. You can have the U.S. Marshal serve them. Oh, I guarantee you, they start changing their tune up. Oh, we're sorry, Miss So-and-so. We're sorry. And they start dealing with you a whole lot differently. Yeah, you thought you were big badass bully gatekeeper villain. Thought you had all the power. Sometimes you got to smack them in the head and enforce these procedures. Yes. Just imagine this is how corrupt they've been. So can you imagine? But at the end of the day, once again, guys, we have to stop being scared and afraid and stop pouting. I had to pull my big boy pants up, and we have to enforce this stuff. So I'm going to get to the comment section before I shut this video down. By the way, appreciate you all joining. Don't forget to thumbs up, smash the like button, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Okay, we have Stephen Wilcox in the building. Says, what do 3 stars mean? And what's the difference? Okay, the 3 stars means you're still at a U.S. Citizen. You're at a U.S. citizen status. But you're at a lower status. That's what the 3 star. I found it on a friend of mine's passport that shows a friend of mine lives in the suburban area. By the way, I won't say which suburb. I was about to say, but he showed me his passport privately and said it did concern him some years ago. I said I was able to find it. It took me a while. And yep, he had 3 stars. That means you're a U.S. You're doing this at a lower level. It's part of the caste system. You have 4 or 5. There are benefits. I won't tell the details. Maybe for the Zoom class, I'll share that with you guys. But I have a private source that actually confirmed they have a 4-star, which is at a higher level. And they had a story they told me about. Very powerful. And this same source was actually with me some years ago when I went to the Department of Elections in the New Center area near downtown Detroit. It's like I think like Midtown area. And I I had went to check on my voter registration to make sure it was canceled, terminated. Follow up. They gave me another certificate. And the lady at the time, this was back in 2012, because it has the date on it when I went to go follow up. They gave me it to show. I wanted to make sure they hadn't pulled no stuff to try to re-register me. Because one sister who told me, put me up on this years ago, said you guys need to double check. Because she said they'll re-register people. It's funny they can re-register you at the DMV, but they can't cancel. You have to specifically go to the Department of Elections. But check your local states. It may be different. Your local counties, wherever you reside, wherever your territory is at, your dwelling, by the way. So I told him, the lady said my name at the time was blinking in red. Now I can't speak because I've had to re-enter in certain contracts. By the way, I've been entrapped, so I don't know if my status is still at this level. But he told me that meant at the time that's like at a higher status. So definitely appears though I wasn't at the full 5-star, but that would represent I possibly was at a 4-star. But I haven't applied. I haven't gotten a passport yet. I haven't went through that process. I'm still working on that. But I'm getting my other contracts taken care of, and I will never, ever, ever be a registered voter. If you want to do these processes, I stress this, I'm giving you a powerful tool, especially if you're a minority, if you're a black person. Because I just gave you guys, I went on another podcast. I tried to warn them because I said I met all these people that say I want to be sovereign or I want to have success, or I authenticated my birth certificate. I find out they're still registered voter. You know what you're doing. You're tying yourself into being a U.S. person, and those are benefit privileges. See, they call them benefit privileges to entice you. They have foreigners that come over here thinking they're getting citizenship, and they're actually putting themselves in the system, in the jurisdiction. Didn't know they were already, by them being foreigners. And there's some other paperwork that they filed, but they are actually, it's crazy stuff is set up backwards. You want to do the opposite. But they're putting themselves right in the system. Just gave you guys another jewel. So yeah, that 3-star means you don't want to be a 3. It means you're a U.S. You're at a lower status. Star Sorcerer says, put a class together and let us pay registration. Okay, good idea. I would have to learn how to do that. That will take me some time. That's a great idea. I know it shouldn't be difficult, but some of these things are time consuming because in the past, I'm getting some help from someone to work on these things. Because if you look at a lot of top content creators out there, if some of you guys have those skill sets, you guys would know how to set that up. You guys would like to be of assistance, and I could find ways down the road where you could be compensated, and you want to help me get to the next level, and you have a skill set in those areas. Let me know, shoot me an email, and we can maybe work something out. And but in the meantime, that may take me some time to do. But someone also encouraged for me to do like a free class, so it would entice bringing you guys in, and you guys could judge and share it with other people. Let you guys see the quality of the work that I shared, and let you guys determine, if you feel like it's the information I went over is good quality. Many of you are at different levels. Some of you are advanced. So that's a great idea. Thank you, Star Sorcerer. Gerald Joke says, okay. Chi Vegas says, that would be awesome. Star Sorcerer says, I'm in. Star is right. Put a class together and Zoom it, and we'll pay for it. Okay. Star Sorcerer says, yes, Gerald. Star Sorcerer says, having these certifications are gems. We need this. Yes, taking these classes, these webinars are very important. Just like many of you all that have a background, if you've been in the military before, or just like college class, I oftentimes like to use an analogy with a friend of mine. I went to school for business. I went to DeVry Institute of Technology in Columbus, Ohio. It was the first college I went to right out of high school. I transferred to Detroit College of Business, which was purchased by Davenport University, the Dearborn campus, which is now moved to Livonia, Michigan. You can see off the freeway. Livonia campus. I've been to the Warren campus before. I heard they have another one because I'm an alumni. I did finish with my associates. I didn't finish on my bachelor's. I took credits that went towards my bachelor's degree. I did finish and took quite a bit of those classes, and I can understand how those college courses apply to real life. I can explain, but I learned more in the sovereign movement. The redemption movement actually taught me how to apply those courses to real life, because many colleges are also teaching you how to be good slaves, how to conform to the system. That's why there's a lot of emphasis placed on fraternities, sororities, for connections, to pledge to be a good gatekeeper. It's compartmentalized, but they're not teaching you the real information, real commerce, the private side, which used to be taught in some of the high schools and some of the colleges. By the way, I had a subscriber who was teaching, going over private classes with me that I was taking through Zoom related to something else, and he confirmed that they used to teach this information in a high school and colleges years ago. He said they took it out, then they put it back in. He confirmed that. And that we had a guy that attended some classes some years ago from private classes in the city of Detroit, the word of mouth, who told one of my sources, told me to share this story, said the guy mentioned in our classes, he took this information when he was in college. It can't so he recognized this information deals with commerce. See, people that have master's degrees, PhDs, they're teaching you, those people at a certain level where the information is compartmentalized, they're teaching them how to be good slaves, how to be programmed with the information that they want them to know. Something to keep in mind. So, yep, I agree, Star Source, having these certifications are gems. We need this. Yes, that's why the webinars are important. Chi Vega says, hey, Dorsey, I just sent you an email. Okay, awesome. Carol Wilson says, great information. Thank you, Carol. Chi Vega says, hey, Dorsey, can we use the 1099A or C forms to pay off mortgages? Yes. Yes, you can. You can. There's ways you can recoup that. Now, there's different procedures for that, just to give you a heads up. If you're using certain methods, a certain one procedure, then you may have to have your estate and other things set up. But there's another procedure. There's a couple other procedures where you don't have to have that set up. But it would behoove you, if you've done an authenticated birth certificate, if you have a DBA filing in place, those are things that will help protect you. If you've done a W-8BN, things of that sort. In some instances, if you filed a Form 56, if you have a power of attorney, Form 2848 on file with the IRS, these are things that will help protect you. So you're concerned about, because there's some people out there, they're concerned about men and people showing up in black suits, and I get that. That's why I don't want you guys to be in harm's way, and the reason I'm doing this video was to provide clarification. So yes, you can. Stephen Wilcox says, if you're pulled over with the 3-star, you still go to jail. Just ask. It still may depend. Some instances, police officers may give you a break. It depends on the offense that you've committed. To be more specific, Stephen, some instances, like if it's for speeding, some officers can give you a warning, by the way. But that 3-star, understand, it's at a lower status. That's putting you in potential harm's way, because it shows you're still doing business as a U.S. citizen. You have contracts that are still lingering, that's tying you into being a U.S. person or U.S. citizen, which is at a lower status in the caste system. You get it? I just dropped you guys another jewel for advanced classes. Star Sorcerer says, no compensation needed. I can help. Okay, appreciate it, Star Sorcerer. Just shoot me an email, Star Sorcerer, and we can work something out. Appreciate it. Chi Vega says, colleges are big businesses. Yes, you are correct, Chi. Star Sorcerer says, example, I took astrology classes and basic tax classes to learn. One was on Zoom, the other on Everbright. Very easy to use. I will send you an email. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Rachel Gaines says, hello, what intel do you have regarding the RV? Well, if you scroll back earlier in the video, Rachel, I went over the RV information. But for you, I'll go over it again before I wrap up. We're still waiting I went over the banks from last time I heard. They're still waiting. The U.S. Treasury has the power to release the authorization codes. That's for like tier 4B. Before this goes public for the green signal, the green light, there are certain bankers that also have access to higher tiers where they can see the rate behind the scenes, where certain bankers may not be able to access that. They have, of course, like I'm going over a cash system, like certain bosses or supervisors, they have access to the back screen. So we're still in the waiting phase. Don't know. Remember, this is controlled by the powers that be. So we are getting closer. This is what Bruce's call has gone over. We are getting closer to the RV. A lot closer. So that's a little bit of intel. Say continue to be patient. Don't sell any of your foreign currency. If you're not desperate, you're not in a bad circumstance, try to hold on to it. Hold on to your Zim, your Zimbabwe, your Dong. If you have Dong, your Indonesian rupiah, your Iranian rial, your Korean won, your Chinese yuan, your Japanese yen, your Mexican pesos. Hold on. And if you're wondering about the validity, there's currency books out there you may be able to find. I found a free version some years ago, but you have to do some research. They had paperback copies, and I learned that from TNT Tony. Just to show you, the gurus still tell the truth. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't listened to his shows from many years ago. I can't say they're right on everything, but that was from listening years ago. He gave me that. I just did the research, and I can interpret what he was saying. That's why I don't disrespect or disregard the gurus. Contrary to what Benny Wilson says, I disagree with Benny. There's a lot of truth to what the gurus are saying, and Bruce's call and TNT's calls have been very accurate. Even though I listen to Currency 365, big shout out to the brother, the work he's doing over there, by the way. But I still don't disregard certain gurus. Also, to get updated information, check what's the name of that site? It's at the tip of my tongue. Dinar Detectives. Check dinardetectives.com. Dinar Recaps. Just type in on Yahoo, Google search engine, DuckDuckGo, whatever search engine, Bing, Microsoft search engine, whatever web browser to your liking, Brave web browser, Safari, Google Chrome, whatever search web browser to your liking. Type in the search results, search engine, dinarrecaps.com, dinarguru.com, Dinar Detectives. Those are different websites, and you can get updated intel. And these people, keep in mind, some of these gurus have been at this stuff like damn near every day, every week for years. So I think for somebody to be that dedicated to this, I think there's some validity to what they're saying, even though the intel might be dull from time to time. I think somebody that hellified dedicated, I commend them for their dedication, because it becomes redundant after a while, like it has with me. I put it on the back burner. It happens whenever it happens. I don't know, but that's the latest intel. But I just gave you guys where to research. Those of you all have questions about the dinar. I may do one last video, a comprehensive video where I'll go over, show my old receipts, information I've never or generally didn't go over in my earlier videos that I never went over before. Just remind me, if I forget, just shoot me an email. Say, hey, Dorsey, I'm still looking for you to do that updated video on that dinar. You guys have to remind me, by request. So I have a reason to do the video. You guys don't remind me, I'll forget about stuff like this. See, or just if you haven't heard from me a while, just send me another friendly reminder. I love you guys' emails. So you don't worry about you guys bugging me. I don't mind. Just give me a chance. I will get back with you if I haven't got back to you. If it's for a consultation or whatever, don't panic. Just understand I may be busy at the time, and I'll follow back up. Even sometimes I might even give you a shout out, and when I go live again or whatever, let you guys know I acknowledge you or what the circumstances. But don't be afraid. Don't hesitate, by the way. So I'm going to read these last comments and get ready to shut this down. But go back over this video was about the 1099 process. I wanted to add clarification, insight. It mainly helps with the, you can use it to discharge debt, to offset payments. There's different procedures, different ways to file it. They're not all the same. And some of these gurus, people who teach these methods, the reason they charge because there's different methods, and you have to understand the methods. But I gave you guys free information to research before you try some of these methods out, some of the things to file to have under your belt so you're protected and utilizing some of these methods. Those of you all who are concerned about the men in black suits showing up or agents or stuff, I do get the concern. So just make sure you do a lot of reading, a lot of research. Check with like-minded people, friends or relatives who are aware. Don't check with friends or relatives who are brainwashed, who are gatekeepers, or have a government mentality to just do as you told. You can tell when you talk to certain people how they're just brainwashed. But get with like-minded people who are open-minded, who think out of sight, out of mind. Evaluate, but make sure you research, make your own assessment. This is not legal or financial advice. I did give a disclaimer. Make sure you seek, if you still have questions or you're on the fence, make sure you seek a competent professional. Compare notes. You can compare notes too. Don't take my word for what I'm saying. But I always encourage, do your own homework, do your research. And I think you'll find out and say, oh, I see what Dorsey was talking about now. Oh, I understand. Yeah, I've had people come back to me. Yeah, I know. Trust me, I've been part of this for quite a while. But we're working on ways to strategize to make this better for everyone. And there's a stampede of people who are learning this information. But to get back on subject, I was getting a little bit off, but the 1099As, to give you guys an idea, these corporations behind the scenes, they say you've abandoned the property because your signature is also your property. They monetize your in lingus trust. They sell it on the derivatives market. They're double dipping. Your bills, all that is supposed to be prepaid for. Matter of fact, think about this, guys. When people are on welfare, food stamps, cash assistance, they're tapping into your trust, your in lingus. I've been on that many years ago. All they're doing, they're going into those people's SSN accounts. Those are dumb, in many cases, dumb citizen slaves who don't know how to access this. But these agencies, remember, a corporation has more benefits than a U.S. citizen or U.S. person, because they have the hyphen comes after the 2 digits for their tax ID number. That's like the social security number for businesses. So they have a higher rank, generally speaking, when you operating a certain way dealing with the SSN. So that's why corporations, they just go ahead and say you've abandoned the property. Say for a mortgage, a student loan, they sell the security instrument, which, let's say for a mortgage, which is a dead pledge, you're supposed to get a check back. Behind the scenes, the underwriter, they underwrite their name, they sign the allonge note, which was the check, which is called the security instrument, you were supposed to get back at closing. But what they stole and the check from you, they monetize the promissory note and sell that on the securities market. Sell the bank, from what I understand, is like the power of attorney to become the grantor. They have these different positions, like the underwriters and brokers. That's why they undersign their name to take away your signature, which I went over all rights reserved earlier. That's why contracts are important, how you sign things. They stole the note, stole the security instrument from you. By the way, that's the check that you were supposed to get back. They stole that at closing, had you sign power of attorney over to them, not to you, because they tapping into your in lingus trust, your CUSIP number. Just like when you hire a lawyer, hire an attorney, they can cash in on your exemption account when you give them your social security number. Yeah, it's a fraud they're committing. See, we weren't taught how to do real commerce. When I attended those private seminars some years ago, I told a friend of mine all the time I was being taught by the elites. They were teaching us how to do this stuff ourselves, where you don't have to go through a third party. Now, sometimes for safety reasons, you can still contract with some of these people, because you don't know, you just don't know. Sometimes it's just easier to just hire a lawyer to contract with them. You have to understand what situation is best for you. You have to evaluate. So I still give a disclaimer. But however, if you don't feel comfortable, you can still, it's just sometimes it's better to go that route. Because if you don't understand what you're talking about and you go before some of these judges, and Yusuf has talked about this too, and you don't know how to express yourself, and that even goes for myself. I put the onus on myself. I'm not fully there. You don't know how to present yourself when they ask you, what is your name? And you don't know how to explain yourself in a proper capacity, then they can do devious things to take jurisdiction. They can always railroad you too. But there are ways, and I've gone over this before. If you have to come back or go after judges, so you have the Judicial Tenure Commission for, like, for Michigan, it's local judges. Federal judges, you have to go through Cincinnati, like the Court of Appeals, if you have a complaint to file against a federal judge. But Judicial Tenure Commission, look up the website for Michigan. Judicial tenure for attorneys to file complaints, the Attorney Grievance Board, because many of them may have dreams of becoming on the Supreme Court or high or judge one day, and they go back and look at their file and their record, and they see, oh, they had all these complaints or had a bad suit, or they were doing people wrong, railroading people. That can look bad and can hinder them potentially down the road when they're trying to go for higher positions for Supreme Court or for certain positions. That can reflect bad on their record. So it is powerful filing complaints, just like filing a complaint against police officers. You go through the Department of Internal Affairs. Not only after attempting to file a complaint within the department of itself, they're supposed to have that information. If a police officer's harmed you or done you wrong and you can't get remedy, and you go through the Department of Internal Affairs, or if it's internal, because sometimes police officers have situations, or you also may want to check into your state police, have internal situations of maybe workplace discrimination. I heard in one state, I think Baltimore, there's women police officers in Baltimore, they're suing their own department for in-house discrimination. So in that instance, they will go to the Department of Internal Affairs because they're facing discrimination from their own co-workers. You see, there's remedy. So similarly, you have the Attorney Grievance Commission. You may have to look up what is called for your local state, your local municipality. You have the Judicial Tenure Commission for judges. There's also ways when these gatekeepers harm you, you can have these companies investigated. Like I had something here, but I was able to remedy the situation, by the way, without going into the details. But say I was looking at filing, a complaint. Not only that, but taking legal action against something. I went over this previously. And what I also found out from someone, big shout out to Lady Bijou out west, gave me this when I spoke to her a couple weeks ago about the particular IRS form where you can have a company audited for 7 years. Ouch, if they harm you. So there's some powerful remedies when these gatekeepers, debt collectors, or corporations, and you can use some of these remedies with some of these processes if they don't want to follow the law. Some of these chief financial officers or CFOs, where they don't want to issue the credit to your account and they want to steal the funds, but they're forcing you to pay twice, and they're double dipping, tapping into your account. Yep. There's some powerful remedies out there. Best believe. Okay. Let me read the rest of these comments. I'm gonna really shut it down. So I went over 1099A. C is used to cancellation of debt. The OID is used to for recoupment processing for securities for certain types of debt. By the way, for certain procedures, you can mix and dab. You just got to understand what you're doing. In some instances, you file the 8281. Some instances, certain processes is not required. Maybe more so required if you're doing a mortgage or a student loan, to file the 8281 along with the OID. But like I said, there's one brother has a process, not saying his name, where he showed he gets a check back, and I know his procedure because I ordered it from him some years ago. I paid the donation myself. I actually had it sent to me for free by a friend, but I wanted to double check. And when I found the guy's channel, who he told me it came from, and I said, oh, his donation was cheap. It was only a certain amount. I said, oh, I'll pay that. And sure enough, it was a few documents that were missing, but it was sent to me free anyway by a reliable source that I had. Big shout out to the brother. He knows who he is. He does follow my channel. I won't say his name to protect his identity. And we still talk from time to time. And I said, yeah, because he sent me that information about Mr. Hauser's channel. I didn't know who Mr. Hauser was, by the way. But I was familiar with that process. That's a different procedure because I'm familiar with that address that's used to discharge debt, by the way. It's a different department of the Treasury. So to make a long story short, to give you guys an idea how those forms work, that's what these companies are doing. So that's why they have corrected box on there. Sometimes in some instances you check the corrected box to correct the filing that they said that you didn't file the tax. And that's how some people file complaints in the court, hem certain judges up from the courts and certain debt collectors from not paying the tax because they're required to report that. But they're saying you abandoned the property because your signature, your all caps, that's part of the property. You see, so you're putting the onus back on them. You're putting that, making them, you're putting the hot potato back in their hand when now they're caught holding the hot potato. You see, that's how that works. So what I'm gonna get ready to do, guys, I'm going to my next spot. I'm a little bit behind. I'm still on schedule with my patrols. By the way, I'm still at the slave plantation. Appreciate you guys for joining. If you haven't, make sure you smash the like button. You subscribe to the channel. Tell somebody about the channel. Helps me rank higher in the search results, by the way. And after I finish explaining, well, for the most part, the 1099 OiD process, I'm going to get to the rest of you guys' comments, and then I'm going to shut things down. I know that sounds good, so hold on a second. Okay. All right, thank you for holding, guys. I'm back. Appreciate you all. I'm going to get ready to read the rest of you guys' comments. And after that, I'm going to shut the video down. So what I was going over so far, reiterate once again, the title of this video deals with the 1099A OiD redemption. There's different procedures. It's not a one-size-fits-all formula. There's different people who teach different processes, by the way. This can get a little complex because I even know about a process where there was an old patriot, but there's a new lady that's been out for a while. She shows you how that you can write your what do you call it, your payroll off with your job. You can claim that back. You can recoup that. Your bank there's even, I know there's a way to even recoup your bank statements, but I don't talk about things like that because it's very advanced, and YouTube is already public. But the reason I'm going over this because Eon, he did a video, he addressed Mr. Hauser, he did a video, and I think Eon shows too much, by the way, like, because see, what they'll do too. Remember, I warned you guys, you also have gatekeepers and maybe bad actors, and they're trying to do things like they changed the passport process. Like, I think Eon shouldn't have shown that one site that shows you how to get tax ID numbers, even though that is supposed to be public information, by the way, because there's actually another site that I can name, and you can't even, I tried to create a login. I can't even figure out how to create a login. Used to be able to get EIN numbers from there for free, and now it's locked up. It's called Brightscope, by the way, and where you can look up their I know it says stuff dealing with 401k, but you can get a lot of companies' tax ID number was another way. So Eon shouldn't have shown that. Should only show that for private consultations and things of that, because that's too public. You asking for these gatekeepers when they've made things difficult. Because I had one source that wanted me to go through Eon's site. I think during the time when Eon was locked up, he wanted me to archive that information. I said that's too much work. I mean, there's other, if I had a team of people, but if somebody as advanced as I am, that's too much work for somebody like me to do. Because I'm up there with Eon. I'm very highly advanced, even though I would say Eon is more advanced than myself. I put him at a higher level, but I'm definitely not a beginner. I'm at an advanced stage in this. But I don't think he should have showed that site that shows you how to get tax ID, because when they do stuff like that and it goes too public, like when the TDA movement went viral back in 2017, then the Federal Reserve all of a sudden started lying and saying we don't have accounts with routing numbers. They just blatantly, and then they started blocking those accounts, and people had to start using the lesser banks. You see, so certain things, that's the only reason, because you guys know I don't normally go this in depth, by the way. And I could show you guys more than this if I did a Zoom video, which I am down the road, but you guys have to let me know. We'll probably, preferably, if we set up a Zoom class or if those interested want to set up a private consultation, just let me know that you want to do the Zoom private consultation, and I can go over stuff like that more in depth. I can do a more in-depth class. And I recommend, if you're a beginner, you schedule at least an hour minimum worth of consultation, because I might have to go up on my prices, because a lot of times I've gone over the time to multiple hours. By the way, I had one guy in England, by the way, had a consultation where he wanted me to help him get a passport over here. And that's a lot of work. So I mean, you have to, at that point, that's would be very time consuming. I have to do the research, and I haven't even got my own passport yet. Matter of fact, that's what would encourage me to take the class. I might not be able to take the class that's coming up in February. There's a brother out there, commend the brother. I said his name earlier, by the way, but I'll let you guys do your research. He's doing an updated class. He's more advanced than myself. I commend him for his work on the passport process. He already taught it, but he has to update it, because the thing is, like I'm going over, these gatekeepers make things more difficult, because people sometimes, that's why I say it's hard for me sometimes, guys. I want to show you guys information, but it's difficult when I have minions, bad actors, villains out there who are trying to keep some of us enslaved, even for somebody as advanced as myself. By the way, they want to make us U.S. citizens, U.S. persons, and they want to try to inhibit and sabotage us. And I meant to say this too, that I work hard, and there's others that work hard, but there's people out there actively trying to sabotage us. You see, because they don't want you to be independent. That's a whole nother discussion. That gets into like the New World Order, Klaus Schwab, and I won't go in that direction. That's neither here nor there. I can get to that later, but to stick to the meat and potatoes, going over the purpose of the 1099-A forms, you're correcting what these companies are doing behind the scenes and stealing your credit from you. That's the purpose. You're claiming that back to recoup that, because they're double dipping. They're turning that coupon, even your checks. If you still write checks, I know a lot of stuff is digitized. It's done electronically nowadays, but they still create derivatives out of that. Remember what Pastor Lindsey Williams said about the derivatives market? When the elites plan on doing the big collapse with the derivatives market, that's when things are going to get ugly, and there's potential hyperinflation, or they can do the opposite. They can melt the markets the opposite direction. That won't be good. Because Pastor Lindsey Williams said, watch the derivatives market. He said, also watch, he said, if the euro collapses, then the U.S., you have 2 weeks to get out the U.S. dollar. That means you want to start converting a lot of your assets, capital currency, to hard assets. And maybe even mean temporarily getting in digital currency. That's when the big collapse happens. Once they pull the plug. He said, watch that derivative, because the derivatives market, it's a worldwide bubble. But that's what many of these corporations, they're selling your instruments on a Circle 750. It's another name for the stock market. And that's what you're doing with the so you see how they've hidden these forms, because it's encrypted. Remember, I did the series on the Wizard of Oz. That's why it's not a coincidence those 1099 forms are in red. Like Dorothy wore red slippers. Red symbolizes your blood by wet ink. And those forms have to be ordered, by the way. You have to order those forms. You can't just print those out online. You have to order those forms. Now, there is a site that's supposed to be able to assist you. I think that maybe just for the age, you have to do it certain times of the year during tax season. But you want to make sure, because those forms have to be scanned. In some instances, you may have to send a copy to the debt collector if it's the rental property. If they're under a management agency or corporation, you have to send them a copy of what you did. While in some processes, just like the coupon with the so-called creditor, you're the actual creditor, but they're using your in lingus, and you might have to send it to the chief financial officer. Make sure if it's for rent, if it's private rent, say if you're paying cash to somebody, you're renting a house, you can't use it. But if it's under a management agency or corporation, they have a tax ID number. Yes, you can use that. They're supposed to have a controller, similar to the comptroller of currency, a controller. A lot of times they went to school to be an accountant, or they're already a licensed public accountant or a CPA, and they have a treasury management system that's set up then yes, they have the ability to receive the credit, and they should apply that to your rent. If they don't, then that's where you do a suit. You can sue them, and you can take them to small claims court. By the way, some instances, there's some paralegals who are familiar. Like I knew a paralegal years ago that knew the process how to enforce checks off a closed account, and he would tell me similarly, car companies, when they would receive the payment, they would double dip, and he would have to send an enforcement letter to let them know you didn't process the instrument correctly. You tried to receive extra funds, because there's rules with the Federal Reserve Board of Governors. All payments are supposed to be final or irreversible, done a certain way electronically. And that's what the purpose of restrictive endorsements are for, to restrict the contract. It's supposed to be processed a certain way. That's why many bankers are going to school, getting jobs, working at these banks, and not being taught how to do real banking. They're just getting them a job the way the Rothschilds set this fraudulent banking system up, and they're not training these gatekeepers on how to process these instruments correctly. That's why I did a previous video on negotiable instruments and where they're breaking the law. That law that Jonah Bay was going over, I respectfully disagreed. That applies to the GSA bonds, because he mentions how he used those to discharge his child support. There's ways to use the 1099 procedure to discharge your child support, but you have to know what you're doing. I think King Stevian knows that process. By the way, you can go through him. There's others. Akeem L has a process for that. By the way, he even has a webinar. So there's different procedures that work for different processes. But that law that Jonah mentioned dealing with Title 31, that dealt with the GSA, General Services Administration, where he said the government can decide when they want to discharge debt. But that doesn't apply to certain standard, because you have to keep in mind there's different types of negotiable instruments. And that's the purpose when I went over those laws. Look at my previous video I did. The different types of promissory notes and negotiable. There's different types of negotiable instruments. And that will help provide clarification. So that law specifically said within that law that went over, that dealt with the GSA bonds, by the way. Hold on, guys. Give me some water. So I'm going over the time. I know you guys like this action-packed video. I'm going over a lot of high-powered information. But make sure you do me a favor. If you haven't, make sure you thumbs this video up, subscribe to the channel, share this video if you haven't. Get this out there far and wide. And I'm going to get ready to wrap things up. So I went over to A, the OiD 1099-C, and read the instructions. It's important. You also have to order the forms as an IRS 800 number. They're open Eastern time from 7 a.m. in the morning to 7 p.m. because those forms have to be scanned. Now, the white forms, in some instances, if you have to do a 1040X or 1040, those can be printed. Some instances, you can order those forms IRS. They have a version on that carbon, that particular paper I've ordered in the past, and 1040Vs. But remember, 1040Vs, you can print those out, but you can't order those too. But any of the 1099s, if it's the A, the C's, the OIDs, or the B form, they have to be ordered, and they'll send it to you in the mail. You have to keep that in mind, because they have to be scanned, and then you have to know where to send them. You have to look up, and that's why it's taken me a while to get around to that. And if I found a secretary, let's say if I had a girlfriend, a wife who I knew this type of information, I was telling a friend of mine, boy, we have a bankroll by now. Especially one of my former girlfriends that stuck with me. She had very good clerical skills. She actually contacted me not too long ago, last year. I told her again, she had very good organizational skills, and we would be a force to reckon with. She wouldn't have to do some of the gig work jobs like I told a friend of mine is doing the same thing. You'll be able to retain a lot more of your Federal Reserve notes. Let's put our heads together. We're too smart to be out here working, slaving on these 9-to-5 jobs or doing these gig jobs, doing Lyft, DoorDash, Shift, and all of that, or working for the factory, working for the man, slaving. That's a better way. At least I'm not saying I would be rich or whatever, but you have several $100,000, I'll be able to quit. Immediately, we can get refunds that big. But a lot of times, sadly, unfortunately, when it comes to my people, black people, They don't want to help you. They don't work together. It has to be said, but I find the right type of people. I'm not saying this for all, the right type of people who are dedicated, who are loyal, and see the genuineness. I can make this a win-win situation. And I've given ideas to people in the past, to make sure you stay in touch with me. We can put our money in to order the classes and things. We've done this in the past, but some people are selfish. They want to go their own separate way and say, "Oh, forget you, Dorsey. I'm doing my own thing." Or look at you, ha ha ha. It doesn't benefit you when you see your next man struggling and you're not helping pull them up and you're not helping bring them along with you. That's why I'm giving you guys this powerful information. You see, it doesn't do me any good, but the reason I have to also warn you, I don't go as in depth sometimes because you guys have to also understand there's gatekeepers and people with bad intentions. They could be government agent shills out there that don't want you to learn this information. What they'll do is they'll change the processes, like I mentioned with the passport procedure, with the DS-11, and they've made it difficult where they've trying to trick people into giving up jurisdiction because they want you to be a U.S. citizen. That's why I said, don't be a U.S. citizen. Don't check that box on applications. You're a foreign national. Don't be a registered voter. Don't be an organ donor. Get rid of those contracts. Interest-bearing checking accounts. Get rid of those. You only want to have non-interest-bearing accounts. That's why they started off in calling those student checking. They're trying to stop. They're trying to, because they make the banks deals with monetizing, and don't sign up for what do you call those reward programs. Do that through a corporation. Do that through an LLC or have another entity set up. See, that gets into the corporate credit, business credit classes. That's a separate discipline, just like the military has different classes, different schools like sniper school or CQC, close quarters combat classes, or close quarter combat school. You have ranger school. That's the difference. The reason there's different training in corporate America. While years ago, people would get training for Microsoft Word or at the time, or for Dreamweaver, or to use different courses. That's the purpose of these webinars. So you get your full freedom. You can have the many benefits to operate in numerous different ways. And these are things that some of the elites are hiding because they have their freedom already. So those of us, we've got enough knowledge now. We've got enough information. Those of us who are advanced, semi-advanced, to free ourselves. So those who are serious, hit me up. If you're loyal, you're dedicated to the cause, it doesn't have to always be about money, with me. But that's just another option out there. So I went over, once again, the A's. I went over the purpose. A is for acquisition abandonment. C is for cancellation. Read the instructions, the OiD, original issue discount. A lot of times, sometimes that's used in conjunction to reclaim the credit back. By the way, sometimes those forms are mixed and matched with the C's. By the way, there's a procedure to use the A's and C's together. There's one procedure where you just use the A's and the OiDs where you don't use the C's at all. And then there's the WIFIT process. The WIFIT is a different process. WIFIT stands for Widely Held Fixed Investment Trust. Widely held fixed investment. That's a different 1099 procedure with the IRS. And some of the WIFIT process, you use the number from the back of the Social Security card to go in a particular place. So you see how those forms are done differently than Mr. Hauser and what King Stevian went over. So cut out the fighting, cut out the bickering, and try to learn how these different processes work. So you would understand, if you're going to mix and match different processes, you would understand the basics. So you get the methodology right. Kind of like if you're learning how to work on a car. If you're already a mechanic, you would know how to take the engine apart, or how to get to the engine. You would know the right tools to utilize to go through different parts, to get through to get to the water pump, or to take the alternator apart. You would know how to get to some of these components. So that's why I encourage you guys, study different processes. Go to Don Kalam's channel, study Hellraiser's work. Go to Yusuf L's channels, absorb his videos. Yusuf L is a good, excellent teacher. I may not agree with his processes, but keep in mind he's teaching a particular process for his method for secured party creditor. But it will still give you a better understanding and make you more advanced. Learn Jonah Bay has a different procedure. His YouTube channel, King Mel, by the way. I went over Eon. Many different people, Radiant Clone, Enlightened Luciferian, you know, his channel. Still information that's out there, that's free information. James C. Lovett. It'll help you guys out. Now I'm going to go to the comment section before I shut things down. Okay. Okay, I read that comment. Okay. Rachel Gaines says hello. Okay, I read that comment already. Stephen Wilcox says, yeah, got it. Thank you. Chi Vegas says, do you have to be sovereign when using those forms? No, you don't. Chi Vegas, that was her comment. She says, do you have to be sovereign? No, you don't. To answer your question, you don't have to be sovereign to use those forms. D-Max says, hey, what's up, Dorsey? Can you still use the TDA/SSN numbers to pay off debt? Yes, you can. Yes and no. And actually, these forms is like another way of accessing it. That process we were doing as people, you'll still get reversals and stuff, but there's a way, there's another process, and that was supposed to be, we would need a team of people to work on that. If you, those of us or out there who are still trying to access that, because you have to, and I would have to go over that probably through a Zoom, because it's very sensitive. I actually have mentioned some of the steps in the past, so you wouldn't get reversals. By the way, and what you would need to go over. With one of the things, you need a signature card on file with the Federal Reserve, a signature card. So there's a process that you have to go through. Some of the gatekeepers that work for them won't know, but you have to go higher up or whatever when it comes to that. But yes, you can. You can use it temporarily, but certain accounts they blocked, by the way. Just FYI, I just gave you another jewel, something powerful. James Way says, do you have a good source to buy Iraqi dinar? All I know online, you just look up, I've mentioned in the past, see if which site I've used, it's been a long time, I'm trying to remember the name. I don't know if treasuryvault.com is still around. Look up treasuryvault.com and look up safedinar.com. treasuryvault, also check eBay and Amazon. But make sure, look to see if they have a certificate, if it's certified. Do your research behind that. This is not financial or legal advice, but I look up, I don't know if treasuryvault.com or Safe Dinar, if they still sell them. It may be other sites. Also, still check if there's brick and mortar locations in your area, if the banks still don't sell foreign currency, or if they stopped. Some people said they stopped. Some people said they switched to other banks, but you have to check. You have to do your research, and may have to go extensively, by the way. Hopefully I answered that question. Chi Vegas says, I really appreciate everything you're doing for humanity. Oh, thank you, Chi. That's sweet. Thank you so much. She says, sheeples are draining too much real information and technology out here for folks to learn the truth. Yes, they are. I agree. Stephen Wilcox says, where is the best place to file the 2848 form, local or Washington? Both actually through Washington, D.C. I would also check file with the CAF office, Central Authority Filing. You can look up their fax numbers, but mail in a physical copy, and look up the IRS. Look up your district to where you will file forms to. You can also have that notarized, file extra copies under notary presentment, Stephen, and then have additional copies under notary presentment to have on standby if you're still doing business in the public under employers in case. So like if you went through like what I went to, you have a gatekeeper or someone and that's works for your company. If you're still doing business or you're a contractor and you're doing business with any public officials, you can send them a copy of that, and that would show them they don't have authority to go in your file, or you would have it on record. But if you still may need, I don't know what paperwork you filed, but you want to make sure you've done an authenticated birth certificate process, you've done a DBA or trademark, but bulletproof yourself. If you also haven't, get rid of your voter registration, and don't be an organ donor. Those things are going to tie you in, and you can recorrect the that passport status. Check with Akeem L. He has the best information on that, by the way. See, I just dropped you another jewel. Akeem, actually, he's one of the few I've learned from listening to him, by the way, maybe through his YouTube channel. I can't remember, but I've heard him state you can correct if you have the 3-star. Maybe some process you have to go through, but you can upgrade that, recorrect it. But you want to make sure you've removed yourself from other contracts. You've done other things as well, by the way. Chi Vegas says Treasury Vault is still around. Okay, thank you for that information, Chi. Hopefully I answered your question, Steve. James Way says Treasury Vault is active. Just check. Okay, awesome. Okay, guys. Well, that's it. That's my time. It's been a while since I've done over 2-hour video. Still at the plantation. By the way, I got to catch up with my paperwork. Appreciate you all joining me. I'm your host, doing business as the legal fiction and linguist, John Dorsey at Dorsey's Resource. If you like the work that I do, you want to subscribe to my channel, you're welcome to do so. Check the description box. You can follow me at Dorsey's Resource on Facebook, on Twitter, at Dorsey's Resource, minds.com. I'm also on Instagram. I think Dorsey's _resource 2019. That's my Instagram. Where to follow me. That's my IG. I'm on Rumble at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Brighteon.com. Give me time, guys, in case something happens over here. You guys will know where to find me. Definitely on minds.com. I re-upload. I'm going to have to still learn some more of these other web hosting services, by the way, because of the censorship that's going on. Share this video to help you get out there, to help rank higher. If you want others to be empowered, to learn this information, you guys want to see other good quality content from me that's high power, it will build momentum. Appreciate doing so. So real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. Rest in peace to my relative out there that passed away in the Cleveland, Ohio area. Rest in peace to my unofficial uncle Shelton that passed away. Rest in peace to, I think, Shelton Winslow was his name. Rest in peace to Shelton. Rest in peace, Nipsey Hussle, Kobe Bryant, all the pioneers out there. Chadwick Boseman, real legends never die. They live in our hearts forever. The marathon will continue. Guys out there, everybody stay woke. Until next time, be blessed. Inshallah, peace, shalom. Inshallah. Ashe, take care. Deuces.